how can communism and capitalism coexist? And what do these people want at the top? That's the riddle you have to answer, and you had to answer it a while ago. Really, how we can get along. Because there's a risk of war. You know, there's a risk of conflict here.
How do you feel the nation and our fiscal status will come out of the huge debt buildup we have? How do you believe America will de-debt?
Well, this has all happened over and over again. That's what caught my attention. When you hit a zero interest rate and you have too much debt and everybody needs money, the way it works is the government sends out the checks, but the government can't print money. So it has to borrow money from the Federal Reserve and borrow money from others. And they don't have enough money, so that they print the money. And so the value of cash and the value of bonds has negative real returns, significantly negative real returns. And so money goes somewhere else. It goes into, traditionally, equities. It goes into gold. It goes
Real
into
estate.
Property. It goes, yeah.
The house over there, Ray, just went up $300,000 when you sat down in the chair. Continue.
But the same thing happened in 1971, August 1971. Same thing happened in March 1933. And that was when they produced a lot more money and that monetization, which moves its way through the system. Mechanistically, the way it works, a bond, the Federal Reserve comes in and buys a bond. It gives it to an investor. That investor then in turn puts it into other investments. And then it gives it to the public through the government. So this is, that's the way the mechanics.
Let's go to China now. It's so much in the news. I wanted to wait, but I think we've just got to get to China right now. This is a new Beijing. Is it a return to an old Beijing that you and I knew when you were buying Northeast Air? Or do you envision a Beijing that's moving to a new territory?
Well, you have daughter and son-in-law in Shanghai, and so we get
We're living it in real time.
We're living in real time. And the more you have contact, I think the more you understand it. I don't think it's well understood. For a long time, the question is, how can communism and capitalism coexist? That's the riddle you have to answer, and you had to answer it a while ago. And what do these people want at the top? And what the answer to that riddle was told also by Deng Xiaoping when he was asked. He said, it's glorious to be rich. And then they asked about capitalism, and he says, it doesn't matter if it's a black cat or a white cat, just as long as it catches mice. And so the idea is producing wealth. And so
but it's
capitalism,
changed.
but capitalism, yes, but the redistribution. Okay, so we have four things that are really going on in China, if you understand their intent. Common prosperity is the word now, okay? And it has been the objective to raise money and then to broaden the base of that. Okay, that's common prosperity. So if you look at their tax rates, they're lower than the United States. If you look at the measures of almost capitalism, they have as much capitalism or more capitalism, much more so than Europe, for example. And now they're in a prospect to broaden that. So I think there's a tendency, and an understandable tendency, to think because they are Maoist and capital and communist that they're going to go back to that kind of a thing. And they're not. Deng Xiaoping, Xi Jinping, just, for example, introduced the newest stock market in Beijing. He made a point of being the one who introduced the market in Beijing to the small and medium-sized enterprises. They know that it catches mice. And so the issue is that the capitalist is not in control. The issue is that there's a system for the whole system, and then what they want to do is make sure that it's not a capitalist-driven system. So, and then there's data control, and then you have to understand there's micromanagement. It's like the kids, there's a top-down versus bottom-up. Whether you like it or not, it's what it is.
How can our listeners and our viewers prosper from their micromanagement of the real estate debt collapse we're beginning to see in China? What is the opportunity if we see their dominant investor position domestically go down in price? How do you play that?
Well, the mechanics are the same as the United States went through and everybody else went through. So it would be very similar to our 2008 mechanics.
Or recollapses or whatever.
So what we do, it's happened over and over again, is the central bank makes a decision of moral hazard. You know, they never used to have moral hazard.
Do you believe they're there right now after this week that we've seen in the markets?
Oh, they knew that this was happening, and there's a preparation for this, and they know that there's more, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing, because in the past it used to be that they would guarantee it. The banks, 5 major banks would loan to state-owned enterprises and local governments with implied government guarantees, and it was bad. So the process is the same. Expect the exact same type of process as we would go through, which is to say that there will be stung. Investors will be stung. That's how it works. And that the system will be protected because it's denominated in their own currency.
Beautiful. I want to get this on the record, though, Ray Dalio, because every Wall Street firm is saying this morning this is not a Lehman moment. What we witnessed yesterday in the lesson in price. Explain why this is not a Lehman moment to Ray Dalio.
Well, because a Lehman moment produced pervasive structural damage through the system that wasn't rectified until the Treasury came across in terms of its borrowing, and then the Fed came across with quantitative easing. But this is not that kind of a shake-up type of thing. This is $300 billion is what they owe, and this is all manageable. The basic economics is for all countries in all time is that if your debt is in your own currency, you can deal with it.
You can work it out.
You could work it out. We've seen it happen over and over again. And it's a good thing that lenders get stung or that the borrowers get stung. That's how the system works.
Okay, I want to go to my #1 question to Ray Dalio. I'm fascinated by this. You and I have sat at the M-Bar, at the Mandarin in Hong Kong, and looked at that spectacular experiment. I had the honor of Lord Patton with us the day of the Hong Kong collapse, the change essentially in polity there. How should our Western banks, the people you know, James Dimon, Staley of Barclays, Moynihan of a reinvigorated Bank of America, how should the Western banks adapt and adjust in Hong Kong to new China realities?
Well, I think very simply you have to decide whether the rules and the place is a place that you're comfortable with. They will set the rules, and you go in there and you decide if you're going to be part of that as a good citizen or you're not. And then, but you don't jump in and out. In other words, China's a strategic play. You're not going to jump in and out. And the amount that you're in should be that which you're comfortable with. It's the same as an investor. It's not smart to sell on the break or buy. It's a strategic play. Most investors are very overweight in the United States or other places. Diversification. There's a competition, a big competition, a war of sorts going on in technology and so on. The diversification, put the amount and the exposure that you want to have there, because you have to have places on some money on 2 chips, because there are risks in the United States too.
When we look at technology, and it's something you address courageously in Principles, the book did so well. When's the movie come out? 4th of July, what? 2024? No. Hanks is playing Dalio. Okay, so Principles was a huge success. If President Xi read Principles, what chapter would you want him to read? What does he need to know about Dalio Principles?
Well, I think like everybody, the key is know what you don't know, that what you don't know and how to deal with it.
What does he not know about the United States of America, the resiliency of this nation from the Pacific Rim, from Australia and MacArthur all the way up to Tokyo?
Well, there's a totally different approach. Whether you like it or not, we are a bottom-up individualist. It's built about individualists, and it's built, I think.
You're the example.
And the individuals, and bring immigrants to the United States, and that the power of the individual. In China, it is the top-down, and it is an extended family. One of the leaders said to me, for example, it's like a strict parent. And so when we deal with things like video games, do you want your kids to watch video games? In the United States, we would say that's a parental decision. Generally speaking, it wouldn't be the state to make that. They would say it's terrible what's going on, and the state is going to mandate it. So that there are those two approaches, and I would say that the understanding the relative merits and understanding really how we can get along. Because there's a risk of war. There's a risk of conflict here. And so understand how we can get along. I wish that Yes, Chinese understood Americans better, and Americans understood Chinese
I want to bring
better.
it back to